I was a very, very lucky child. My parents were very patient with, let's just say, my eccentricities. So, as you just heard, I started homeschooling at age 12, and about a month later, I created a website called MuggleNet. MuggleNet would eventually become the #1 Harry Potter website. To put that into a little bit of context, because people can have very different ideas about what that means exactly, MuggleNet would receive about 9 million visitors a month, about 50 million page views. I had to grow up very, very quickly. I learned how to code, how to write, how to edit, how to lead, how to manage, and pretty soon I was managing a part paid, part volunteer staff of 120. MuggleNet had the #1 podcast in the world, not just for Harry Potter, but all podcasts. We had one of the biggest forums online, one of the biggest fan fiction sites, one of the biggest interactive RPGs. We also published some books. One of them did very, very well. Spent about 6 months on the bestseller list, and so we got to go on tour and live like rock stars, and it was just way too much fun. So, as part of my homeschool curriculum, my parents pretty much stayed out of my way and let me study whatever I wanted. But one thing they did do, which was really smart, and I encourage every parent in the room to do something similar to this, is that they had me read 4 short biographies of successful people every single day. Imagine what happens to your brain when you're 12, and this is how you start to spend your time. You start to think very big. And I had this epiphany, and I thought to myself, if I can do all this, and I'm only 12, imagine what I can do when I'm 17. Well, see, 17-year-olds could drive cars. I decided that I wanted to change the world, and I wanted to do it on a massive scale. So the first thing I did was I began immersing myself into the lives of people who'd already changed the world to see what patterns I could extract from their experiences. And in doing this research, one conclusion I came to very quickly is that people who change the world tend to be extraordinarily influential before they change the world. And there was one particular type of influence that really captured my imagination, and that was virality. Because to me, the ability to make things go viral felt like the closest that we could get to having a human superpower. If you could make things go viral, you could tip elections, you could overthrow dictators, you could start movements, you could revolutionize industries. So, fast forwarding a bit, I decided to go to college, just for fun. Not a good reason to go to college. I got bored very quickly, very predictably, and I was going to drop out and start another company. But before I did, I wanted to go big. I wanted to be able to connect dots and see patterns between different disciplines and industries. So I started laying a foundation of knowledge for what would eventually lead to my big breakthrough with virality. Studying network science, network theory, persuasion theory. I set a goal of reading 1 nonfiction book every single day until graduation. Business, politics, psychology, economics, technology, science, probably about in total 6,000 hours of studying the human mind. Neuroscience, cognitive psychology, behavioral science. But it wasn't just books, it was going through SEC filings, 10Ks, research, abstracts, textbooks, looking for patterns. Like, what do successful companies do differently than unsuccessful companies? It was studying industries, everything from natural gas wholesaling to drywall contracting. But it was actually a 3-part process: reading, reviewing, and rehearsing. So I didn't want to just learn a bunch of stuff and not be able to remember it, not be able to apply it. So as far as being able to remember it, I spent the first 6 months doing a really deep dive into the neuroscience of learning and memory. I ended up building a system where I reviewed everything that I wanted to remember on a schedule of a day later, a week later, a month later, and then every 6 months in perpetuity. You forget about 90% of what you learn unless you review it on a schedule, approximately similar to that. As far as being able to actually apply this information in relevant situations, I organized all the information into frameworks to contextualize it. So I'd have a persuasion framework, a negotiation framework, innovation framework. So take innovation, ideas. That's why we're all here, right? We're here because we love ideas. We all get a kick out of hearing cool new ideas that can change our mindsets. Well, when I studied innovation, what I did was I compiled a series of acronyms that encapsulated every different type of business model. And then the way that I would practice innovation is I'd go to Walmart. I grew up in a little farm town in Indiana. I'd go from product to product and product on the shelves, and I would take every product and just apply every model to it. So like luxury, long tail, unused capacity, et cetera. Like luxury, could I just sell a way more expensive version of this type of product? Long tail, could I let people customize their own version of this product? Et cetera, et cetera. So I came up with thousands of billion-dollar ideas. Learned very quickly how little value a billion-dollar idea really has, because the idea itself is actually easy. There's so many ideas floating around that the hard part is actually executing those ideas. So I got really interested in this idea about probability of success. Which of these has the highest probability of actually becoming a billion-dollar idea? And that line of thinking is what led me to a business model using virality. So these are some of the websites we have in our network. Very quickly, when I started studying virality, I studied network science, network theory, persuasion theory, and it was a combination of different things that led to the aha moment. It was the kind of insight that if I was an academic, I would have started publishing papers on it. But of course, I'm not an academic. I'm an entrepreneur, so I just started doing it. And I developed a series of algorithms designed to get Facebook pages to go viral, because Facebook was just the best petri dish, and created dozens of pages that went from 0 to millions of fans over a period of a few hours to a few days. So massively viral. And it was so much fun, and I learned so much. And what I was basically doing was I was testing hundreds of different variables and seeing which variables correlated positively to virality, and then I kept shortening the viral loop until I could tell within 20 seconds if a page was going to go viral. Now, the beauty of this is that it wasn't just Facebook. It was applicable across all platforms. So it was Facebook, then started doing it on Twitter, got millions of followers on Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, websites, apps. Didn't actually matter which platform. Some platforms are vastly more conducive to virality than others, but it still worked on every platform. So eventually started building websites to take advantage of the same insights. And I'm going to share with you the kind of shortcuts that I figured out about how to use virality to spread your message far and wide, because we've all got messages that we need to get out. We've all got causes that we support. There's a lot of important ideas that need to be spread. I believe very deeply in TED's mission of ideas worth spreading. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and my mission is to help make sure that the good ideas get spread properly, because there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come and gets spread to the people who need to hear it. So the first site that we launched was a site called Gives Me Hope. Now, Gives Me Hope is a website where people share uplifting and inspiring true personal stories, such as, my little sister came home from school one day and demanded I take her to the library so she could get books on sign language. I asked why. She told me there was a new kid at school who was deaf, and she wanted to befriend him. Today, I stood beside her at their wedding, watching her sign, I do. Aww. This is a powerfully emotional story. This story has gone massively viral multiple times. The first time we published it, it got 500,000 shares on Facebook, on one of our sites. And then we published it again on another site, 300,000 shares, et cetera, et cetera. This story clearly resonates with us on a much deeper level. We also have other sites. We've got sites like OMG Facts, where people share interesting like trivia, memes. You've seen these funny iPhone autocorrects. Yes, sorry about that, that's us. You've seen these kind of ugly stick figure comics, other types of memes, et cetera. So the site Gives Me Hope did so well that we ended up publishing an entire network of sites just like it. People share their love stories, people share their secrets, and those websites cumulatively have received over 500 million page views since we started launching them. And Gives Me Hope was actually recommended at suicide hotline prevention centers around the country as a tool for people who need hope and inspiration. So those stories clearly have had a pretty significant impact on the world. And that's just one website. Okay, let's talk virality. So right now I could stay 30,000 foot and just talk about like virality and its power to change the world, and I can, but what I want to do is I think the only thing cooler than an idea is an idea that you can actually use. So I'm actually going to go very tactical, especially compared to most TED Talks. I want to give you some tips and advice that you can actually take with you and use in whatever challenges you're trying to solve. First, there's two important big picture ideas that you need to understand about virality. The first one is this idea about a viral coefficient, which sounds scary, but it's actually not. All it is a measure of virality. When the viral coefficient is basically, like if I go and tell you a joke, and you tell on average more than one other person, the viral coefficient is above 1. And that's when you get that awesome hockey stick type of virality. So that's like if I repeat a joke or a message or whatever, the more people tell it, the higher the viral coefficient. Cycle time is how long it takes for you to repeat that joke to someone else. So a restaurant, you might refer someone to a restaurant you love once every 6 months. So that'd be a 6-month cycle time, which is very slow. You can still get an exponential growth curve, but it might take 20 years before it actually gets really significant. On the other hand, you've got games, you've got like a funny picture. If you see a funny picture, you're either going to share it right away or you're not going to share it at all. So that might have a cycle time of about 5 minutes. So pictures can go viral very quickly, and other types of word of mouth can be very slow. But the more that you shorten the cycle time, the faster you can get virality. So 2 important ideas. If I had to summarize everything that I've learned about virality into one almost painfully obvious idea, it's that the more incentive you give people to share, the more likely they are to share. For example, this delightful factoid that you cannot, in fact, hum while holding your nose closed. And we're going to make this an interactive session because people tend to not really believe this. We're going to all try it right now, awkwardly. Silence. Silence, except that one guy faking it in the back. This was shared when we published it on OMG Facts 713,000 times. And every time we publish it, there's new people who haven't seen it, and it goes viral every time. Stuff that doesn't create emotion does not go viral. Think about it like this. You are sitting on your butt for hours every day browsing the internet. How many times do you actually get off your butt and share on Facebook or tell a friend about something? Once? Maybe? The only way that happens is if you create so much emotion, someone's like, yes, I'm going to get off my butt and I'm going to share this piece of content. So you got to create a lot of emotion, which means you need to be awesome. Here's different ways you can be awesome. You can piss people off. This one's really straightforward. It's called justice porn. People feel injustice, like, oh, this makes me angry, like someone got this unfair thing happen to them. That gets people to upvote it on Reddit, or it gets people to share it on their Facebook. Another example is, these are really obvious, I'm not gonna dwell on these at all, but cute animals, humor, nostalgia, duh. Another one that people don't really realize is that before you share something on your Facebook, on Twitter, before you tell a friend, you're always asking yourself the question, will sharing this make me look cool? This is the reason why no one shares porn. Finally, if there's an issue that everybody's talking about, whether it's a tragedy, it's something in the news, there's so much emotion in the air about this that if you could have created the worst parody video of Gangnam Style, or the worst Harlem Shake. You could have been in the lamest office in the entire world, and you uploaded a Harlem Shake video, you probably got a lot more people to watch it than your other videos. Okay, so here's where I go a little bit of a different angle than most people. I actually advocate, if you want to get ideas that spread, you need to stop thinking that your idea is original, because it's not. Rule number 27 of the internet is whatever you've thought of, someone else has already thought of it and done it. So the way to increase your probability of successfully engineering virality is to learn from things that have already gone viral and use them. For example, George Takei. For those of you who don't know, George Takei is he's one of the most liked celebrities on Facebook, which is interesting because George Takei has not had a major role in a movie since Star Trek, decades ago. Now, George Takei is actually a brilliant virologist, because what George Takei realizes is that, well, I could try to make up funny stuff and post on my Facebook, or what I can do is I can find funny stuff that other people have already figured out is funny, and I can share that with my Facebook fans. So what George Takei does is he goes to different websites that do sort of the work for him and saying, what is the best content on the internet? What's the content that creates the most emotion that my fans are going to like? For example, this gem right here, a picture of Marvin Martian, clearly a Photoshop version of Marvin Martian, on Mars. This was when Curiosity landed on Mars. So this went obviously massively viral with about 180,000 likes and 311,000 shares. And this hits on all the things I just mentioned. Nostalgia, oh, you remember Marvin Martian, right? That creates emotion because it makes you feel like you did when you used to watch him. Humor, it's funny, get it? Marvin Martian on Mars, get it? Get it? The first image has now been received from Curiosity on Mars, it's funny. Identity, ooh, what does that do with identity? Is sharing this gonna make me look cool? It does, in fact, because you, people of Naperville, are in fact, you read the news, you know what's going on, and you're sharing this because you're so informed about current events that you're actually making jokes about current events, therefore you're cool. Finally, what's hot? Everyone's talking about Curiosity on Mars, right? So boom, 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 boom. This just hits all of those buttons. Okay, this looks scary, I know, but I'm gonna break this down. So what this is a network diagram. This is my brain thinks like this, I apologize. This is how things make sense to me, but I'm gonna try to make it make sense. So see all these little clusters of people over here? These are just people that have something in common, right? It could be like StarCraft fans. It could be like a group, one of the little clusters could be a group of soccer moms in Tacoma. They're all people that have something in common. Now, what I realize about virality is that there's lots of really powerful ideas that die prematurely because of the structure of the network. So that means that there's certain clusters that get infected by a viral idea, and there's certain clusters that don't. And it might not be because the idea could be great, and it could create a lot of emotion, but maybe the guy who could have passed it on to this other cluster wasn't online when that thing was going viral. Or maybe he was on vacation. Or maybe he just didn't like it for whatever reason. And so, see that little green one right there, that little green node with the giant red arrow pointing to it? That guy's a critical node. If he's not online when something's going viral with all those other clusters, then it might die. That really important idea might die prematurely. So what I figured out is that if you want to engineer virality, don't start by trying to create a virus. There's already plenty of viruses. I know this is very morbid. Apologies for this, but I actually studied virology, so I think in terms of like morbid virus scientific terms. If you want to create an actual virus, don't start by saying, how do I create the perfect DNA to create the virus? Just use something that already exists and go find out who hasn't been exposed to it yet. And that's the power of TED, right? Like how often do people stand up in TED really talk about something that no one else, like a truly new idea? Truly new ideas are extremely rare, but TED is a powerful pulpit to be able to spread ideas to people who maybe have not been exposed to them, and then they can use those ideas. So figure out which clusters have been infected, figure out which clusters haven't been infected, and then use something that's already worked and gone viral in these clusters, and then expose it to people in these clusters. So like if something goes viral and it goes from like one city to one city to one city and it leaves the other cities, it might be because it just hasn't gotten critical mass in those cities. So okay, we're gonna go actionable. We're gonna go really actionable now, because you've all got things where you've all got either you're working something having to do with social media or tech, or these are just helpful tips anyway. Okay, so first Facebook is by far the most important channel online. This is where people spend their time. The other ones are cool, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, but in general, I'd recommend spending 70% of your time at least focusing on Facebook, because that is where people actually spend their time. Don't just use hashtags that are for the sake of using hashtags. It's really annoying, and people don't actually like it. Don't just retweet self-promotion. A lot of social media people got this in their minds that all you have to do is retweet self-promotion, but it's very obvious. You don't want to be that guy at a cocktail party who's just talking to himself all the time, right? There's some really good tools here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you're interested, these are where I would look to learn more about what's hot right now, what's popular right now, what ideas are already being spread, and then you can figure out how to spread them further. Okay, some really good actionable things you can start doing right away. First of all, we've got a team of data scientists who are amazing, and we found that you can tweet something 3 times, 8 hours apart, and get basically 3 times as many people to see the tweet. Because people are on Twitter on different times throughout the day, and so if you tweet something at 8 a.m. and then something at 8 p.m. and so on, you're likely to hit very different groups of people. So we found that you could tweet something 3 times and get almost as high of a click-through rate the 3rd time as the 1st time. So you've got an important idea, make sure you're tweeting it multiple times, and 8 or 12 hours apart if you're going to do it twice. We found that if you added an arrow before a link, and by arrow I just mean dash, dash, greater than sign, more people see it. Because your brain's like, what is that? That's an arrow. Brain's not used to seeing arrows, so your brain actually sees the tweet, reads it, and then sees the link, and is like, what is this tweet? What is this link? And then reads the whole tweet. So you'll get more people to read your stuff. Lists. Lists just work magically. People love lists for a whole bunch of reasons. In some ways, it hijacks the brain's neural circuitry and makes us want to know more. So if you have important content and you put it in list form, you're going to get more people to read it. And odd-numbered lists work better than even-numbered lists. Remember, 80% of people will only read the headline. So who here is spending 80% of their time writing headlines right now? Didn't think so. Nobody. You want people to read your stuff, to get exposed to your ideas and spread your message. You've got to make sure that your headlines are awesome. Periods. Shorter sentences always work better. The more readable your stuff is, we were taught very poorly by our English teachers who meant well, but we were taught that long sentences with commas are good. They are not. Commas are the devil. Imagine that you have to change every comma to a period. It'll make it more readable when people read it, thus more people will get exposed to your idea and they'll take action on it. Longer. We all like to use big words and long words because it makes us sound smart, but imagine that someone's paying you $1,000 for every word that you remove. Finally, never have more than 3 sentences in a row without adding a paragraph tag. Nothing says stay away like seeing a big chunk of text. Has anyone ever been excited about a really big mound of text they have to read? No, no one. One thing to keep in mind, too, is that when people share something, they usually share it right away. If you get exposed to a new idea, you're not going to go share that idea a month later, 2 months later, as much as you're liking to right away. So keep in mind this idea that if you want to get someone to share an idea, ask them to right away. That's when the emotion's the highest. That's when they're most likely to by far. And finally, this is one that if you do anything on social media, I encourage you to, every single piece of content that you upload should be in picture form. It doesn't mean you just paste a link and then it grabs a thumbnail. It means you have to click the upload button, choose a photo from your hard drive. If you do that, Facebook loves pictures. It will show it to at least 50 to 100% more people than if you didn't use a picture. So there, I hope this was a few probably more actionable takeaways than just staying in the 30,000-foot clouds, but the whole point of this is to make sure that important ideas spread. Thank you very much.